To the outside world, Officer Daniel Reeves was a man of honor, a dedicated public servant, a husband, a protector, the type of man people trusted without question, the kind of man who swore an oath to uphold the law. But the walls of his home in Dayton, Ohio, held something else, something unspeakable, something no one, especially his wife, was ever supposed to see. Emily Reeves was 34 years old, a schoolteacher, a woman who believed in second chances, who had spent years standing beside her husband through the pressures of his job, his long nights, his unspoken burdens. She never suspected that those long hours weren't spent protecting the innocent, but instead, desecrating the dead. Then one night she made a discovery. Something hidden deep within his private files. Something that shattered everything she thought she knew. Something she could never unsee. Within hours, Emily Reeves would be dead. And the man who once vowed to love and protect her would be the one to take her life, before consuming what remained. But that was only the beginning. This is the story of a man whose crimes defy understanding. A crime so disturbing that even seasoned investigators struggled to comprehend what they had uncovered. Tonight, we are pulling back the curtain on the twisted double life of Officer Daniel Reeves. A life built on secrets. A life that ended in horror. And a question that remains to this day, was Emily Reeves his only victim? A man in uniform. A husband. A protector. The kind of person the community turned to in times of need. Officer Daniel Reeves had spent the last 12 years serving the people of Dayton, Ohio. He had built a reputation. Dependable, disciplined, the first to respond when tragedy struck. But inside his home, behind the carefully constructed image of duty and devotion, there were secrets. Secrets that no one, not his neighbors, not his fellow officers, not even his own wife, could have imagined. Emily Reeves had been married to Daniel for nearly a decade. She believed in him. She believed in their life together. She trusted him when he said he worked long nights. Trusted him when he came home exhausted, withdrawn, distant. She told herself that it was just the job. That it was the weight of responsibility. That eventually things would get better. But then came the discovery. A single moment that changed everything. Something she wasn't supposed to see. Something buried in the depths of her husband's private world. Something so disturbing, so grotesque that it made her question everything. The man she had vowed to spend her life with. The vows he had sworn to protect her. The safety of the very home they shared. And then, she was gone. What happened inside the Reeves household on the night of August 14, 2023, defies logic. A crime so horrific that even seasoned investigators struggled to put it into words. But what they found inside that house, the blood, the remains, the horrifying evidence of what had been done to Emily Reeves, was only the surface of something even darker. Something that stretched back for years. Something that revealed Daniel Reeves had been living a double life. A life of depravity. A life most people couldn't even begin to comprehend. Because Emily Reeves wasn't just murdered. She was consumed. But the true horror? She wasn't his first. It was just after 11:30 p.m. when 911 dispatchers received a frantic call. The voice on the other end was trembling, barely coherent. A neighbor, shaken, reporting something they could hardly explain. The sound of screaming. A disturbance inside the home of Officer Daniel Reeves. And then, silence. When officers arrived at the modest two-story home on Sycamore Street, nothing seemed out of place. The porch light flickered. The front door was locked. But when they forced their way inside, what they found would haunt them forever. The living room was untouched. A family photo still rested on the fireplace mantel. A pair of shoes neatly placed by the door. But as they moved further inside, the air grew thick. The unmistakable stench of decay. And then, blood. A trail leading from the kitchen to the basement door. Streaks smeared across the linoleum floor. A single handprint, trembling and desperate, frozen in dried crimson on the wall. Downstairs, in the dim, concrete-walled basement, they found her. Emily Reeves was 34 years old. Her body was unrecognizable. Parts of her were missing. Removed with precision. And there, sitting in the shadows, his uniform still stained with her blood, was Daniel Reeves. Expressionless. Silent. And around him, the remnants of a meal. But the horror didn't end there. Because as investigators searched the home, they discovered something even more disturbing. A locked cabinet. Files, photographs, and something else. Evidence of a secret that Daniel Reeves had hidden for years. A secret that Emily had uncovered just hours before her death. A secret buried in the cold, sterile walls of the city morgue. Emily Reeves had found proof that her husband had been sleeping with the dead. Who, Officer Daniel Reeves. A what? Murder, cannibalism, necrophilia. Where? Dayton, Ohio. When? August 14, 2023. Why? Twisted obsessions and dark secrets. Daniel Reeves wasn't just a man with a dark secret. He was a man who had perfected the art of deception. To those around him he was respected, admired even. But Emily Reeves had begun to notice things. Strange things. Small at first, easily explained away. Late-night shifts that didn't match his department's records. The smell of chemicals on his clothes, long after he had supposedly left work. A padlocked storage locker in the garage, one he never allowed her to open. Then one night while he was asleep upstairs she found the key. Inside she found stacks of photographs. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Images of bodies. Cold, lifeless, posed in ways that no medical examiner would have arranged them. Some with him in the frame. His hands touching them. His face close, almost reverent. And then, the videos. Footage from inside the morgue where he worked. Footage that showed him doing things that no one could have imagined. Emily didn't scream. She didn't make a sound. But she made a decision. A decision to leave. To run. To report everything she had found. But she never got the chance. The police report states that Emily Reeves' time of death was estimated between 2 o'clock and 3 a.m. The official cause? Blunt force trauma followed by dismemberment. But the real horror? The evidence found inside Daniel's stomach. Tissue samples. Flesh. Bone fragments. Emily hadn't just been killed. She had been consumed. And when officers searched further, they realized that Emily Reeves was not the first. What would you have done in Emily's position? If you uncovered a secret like this, would you have confronted your spouse? Would you have gone straight to the police? Or would you have run without looking back? Let us know in the comments below. And what do you think? Was Daniel Reeves always capable of something like this? Or did something push him over the edge? Vote in our poll above. When telling a story like this, a story so disturbing, so unsettling, it's easy to get lost in the horror. To focus only on the crime. But there's more to this than just what happened in that house on August 14, 2023. Because what unfolded that night wasn't random. It wasn't impulsive. It was the final act in something that had been unraveling for years. And understanding that descent, understanding how someone could become capable of this, is just as important as understanding the crime itself. So let's slow down. Let's step back. Let's put the pieces together. Daniel Reeves wasn't an overnight monster. He didn't wake up one morning and decide to become what he became. It happened slowly, methodically, bit by bit, hidden in plain sight. And if you know what to look for, you can trace the breadcrumbs. It started with his work. The long hours at the morgue. The quiet, sterile hallways where no one asked questions. Where the dead couldn't talk back. His role as an officer gave him access, too much access. No one questioned when he stayed late. No one found it odd when he took longer than necessary to process bodies. Because why would they? He was doing his job. But at some point something shifted. The job wasn't just a job anymore. It became something else. An obsession. A fascination. An addiction. And Emily Reeves began to notice. The late nights. The unexplained absences. The growing distance between them. But what could she say? What could she do? He was her husband. The man she had married. The man who had promised her forever. And so, she did what so many do in situations like this. She convinced herself it was nothing. Until she couldn't anymore. Let's put ourselves in Emily's shoes. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night, your husband's still not home. You check your phone, no missed calls. No messages. It's the third time this week. You tell yourself it's just his job. But something feels wrong. So, you start looking. Not out of suspicion, at least not yet, but out of concern. You check his laptop. His emails. You don't expect to find anything. But then, you do. A folder. Hidden deep within his hard drive. A name that means nothing to you. You click it open. What you see doesn't make sense. Photos. Dozens of them. People lying on examination tables. Some with their eyes closed. Some staring blankly at the ceiling. And then, your husband. In the frame. His face too close to theirs. His hands touching them in ways that make your stomach turn. Then the videos. This isn't a misunderstanding. This isn't something you can ignore. Your husband has been doing something unthinkable. And you are alone in the house with him. You need to leave. You need to get out. But what do? Do you call the police? Do you pack your bags and run? Or do you confront him? But it's too late. He's home. At 11:37 p.m., the neighbor heard screaming. But by 11:45, everything was quiet. At 12:12 a.m., Daniel Reeves made a call to his department. He told them he wasn't feeling well, that he wouldn't be coming in for his shift. At 2:47 a.m., a security camera from a nearby gas station captured him pulling up to the dumpster behind the building. A black garbage bag in his hands. He stuffed it inside, walked back to his car, drove home. By 3:15 a.m., Emily Reeves was gone. This didn't happen in a vacuum. There were signs, warnings, missed opportunities to stop this before it happened. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, could this have been prevented? It's easy to hear a story like this and focus on the horror, the crime, the gruesome details. But at the center of it all, there was a person. A woman who had dreams. A woman who trusted the wrong man. A woman who didn't deserve what happened to her. Emily Reeves was a daughter, a friend, a person who lived, who loved, who had no idea that the man she shared a bed with was capable of something like this. And that's the hardest part of stories like these. Because the truth is, monsters don't look like monsters. They look like fathers, husbands, friends, people we think we know, until we don't. So we have to ask ourselves, how well do we really know the people around us? How many secrets go unnoticed? How many crimes are waiting to be uncovered? And most importantly, how many Emily Reeves are out there right now waiting for someone to believe them before it's too late? In the end, the question remains, how does something like this happen? How does a man who took an oath to protect and serve become the very thing that nightmares are made of? How does a husband, a man who once looked his wife in the eyes and vowed to love her forever, become her killer? Some will say it was always inside him. That Daniel Reeves was born a monster, hiding behind the badge, waiting for the moment when his mask would slip. Others will argue that something changed him. That somewhere along the line, the job, the stress, the access to death itself, eroded whatever humanity he once had. But the truth? The truth is often more complicated. And infinitely more terrifying. When investigators combed through Daniel Reeves' past, they found something chilling. A pattern. Bodies that had gone missing for brief windows of time before being returned to the morgue. Reports of inconsistencies in autopsy logs. But none of it was ever questioned. Because who would suspect the officer in charge? And the most haunting part? Authorities believe Emily Reeves wasn't his first victim. Not in the way we usually think of victims. No, there were others. Not all of them alive. But that didn't make them any less real. So the question remains, if Emily hadn't discovered the truth, how long would this have continued? Somewhere out there someone knew. A coworker. A supervisor. Someone who might have noticed a detail that didn't add up but brushed it aside. How many times do we tell ourselves, it's probably nothing? How many times do we ignore the feeling in our gut because we don't want to believe the worst? How many crimes go undiscovered because no one asks the hard questions? And the most important question of all, how many more people like Daniel Reeves are walking among us right now, still undiscovered? Stories like this remind us of one terrifying reality: we never truly know the people around us. We trust. We assume. We give the benefit of the doubt. But sometimes, we shouldn't. If you ever feel that something is off, if your instincts tell you something isn't right, listen. Trust yourself. Speak up. Because the cost of silence can be deadly. What do you think? Was Daniel Reeves always capable of this, or did something push him over the edge? Could Emily have escaped if she had acted sooner? And most importantly, how many others like him are still out there? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this case as disturbing as we did, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because we have more cases just as chilling, just as haunting, waiting to be uncovered.